we convened this meeting to talk about coming up with an approach to responding to the United States Forest Service's supplemental information report in the House Bill South case. And the deadline at this time for filing that response is, I think, midnight on November 7th. So it's getting close. And one issue that I have no knowledge of the requirements that relate to it would be requesting an extension to the comment period. So that's an issue that maybe Mr. Eubanks can talk to us about and see what would need to be done to do that. And the other is the other issue is to talk about how to actually prepare the response. And so there's a couple options that I'll present to you. One would be to have the commissioners and the Environmental Commission and anybody that you have access to that's qualified to do this, and certainly not me, to assess the Forest Service SIR. You could come up with a response on your own as a group, and then have Mr. Eubanks's firm review that. Or you could retain Mr. Eubanks' firm to prepare a response, or if you have some other, I guess, group or individual that you know of that could analyze this, you could retain them to do that. So those are options to talk about today. And the third option, I don't know what that would cost. Mr. Eubanks has given us a price or a cost estimate of, I think, $1,000 to $2,000 to review anything that this group might come up with, and maybe $2,000 to $5,000 to prepare a response, or to have a response prepared. And he can talk to that if I've misstated that. So those are the things to talk about today. And if Mr. Eubanks can hear us, would you address the issue of requesting an extension?
Hey there, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good, okay. So I can't see myself. Hopefully you can see me and hear me. Yes, I'm sorry, I've got a little fall cold here. So let me know if you're having trouble hearing me. So on the extension piece, my advice would be to get something in quickly because the deadline is coming up. Ideally, it would be in by now, but here we are. So by quickly, I mean in the next 1 to 2 days, something very short, to the point, explaining whatever reasons that the county may have that are legitimate as to why you need more time, including, to the extent that the COVID-19 pandemic is still placing constraints on your agency and a hybrid work policy, as well as the need to consult with various stakeholders in the county. I mean, you all are not a small nonprofit. You all are a large county entity, and there are a lot of people with expertise, I imagine, on water related issues. And so I think you have a decent basis for asking for an extension. And that's something, we could do that. It wouldn't take long. I could throw that together in a couple of hours, assuming you all wanted us to, or, someone there could do that as well. It's not, it's not an onerous task. It's just a matter of someone actually putting pen to paper and submitting it to the Forest Service electronically.
Right, and one other consideration for the county is that we're subject to the open door law, so we have to publish notice and try to get everybody's schedules to mesh, and then have 48 hours notice, and then before we can meet to discuss things. So that adds time to anything we do. We're not nimble in that regard. And I guess I have not talked to Jeff Stant or Tim Maloney about this. I don't know if you have, Mr. Eubanks. Or...
I actually was talking to Jeff earlier today from the Indiana Forest Alliance, and I was explaining to him. So this is actually the second part of the discussion that I imagine you were moving towards, which is, our firm would be happy to take the lead if you all wanted us to, but I think that the best advice here, because of the highly technical nature of the SIR, the Supplemental Information Report from the Forest Service, I actually think that it might be better to pull together some folks with relevant expertise, maybe on the Environmental Commission or elsewhere within the county government, who know hydrology and erosion and sedimentation type issues, because these are not really legal issues. I certainly have worked on those kinds of issues enough where I can try to play the part, but the fact is I'm an environmental attorney. I'm not an environmental scientist. And so I think that, if the best advice I can give is to have some of those subject matter experts put together their concerns. I know we don't have a lot of time, and I could review it to make sure that what's being said is consistent with the federal laws that apply here.
Any thoughts?
Well, I think it for the response.
Mr. Eubanks, do you know how long it would take to find out whether the extension has been granted, or is that something that's just a matter of course?
Sorry, I was muted. It depends on the agencies. I think the current deadline's the 7th. Is that right? November 7th. So we would ask them, to get back to us as soon as possible, which is why I know you all have your own internal constraints you have to deal with, but the quicker we can get that letter submitted, the quicker you can ask for a response. But there's nothing requiring the agency to respond at all, let alone by any specific time. So we should assume the current deadline will be the deadline, but we can at least make a record asking for an extension, and hopefully they would grant it.
Well, I think we need to proceed to find people to help them respond and do that immediately, regardless of the extension, and then file the extension and see if we can push that back.
The people on Zoom aren't able to hear you without the microphone.
Yeah, I would think he'd be pretty willing to help with this, because I think he's retired at this point, yeah, and was awfully interested in it to begin with.
Also, this is, I don't know what kind of training Dave Seastrom has, but he's currently the president of the Indiana Forest Alliance, right? Maybe I'm confusing this role. Maybe it's a different thing. like Julie said. Okay.
Together originally presented to the U.S. Forest Service seemed to be sufficient enough to get us to this point. So
And I imagine if he doesn't feel like he can do it, he could lead us somewhere to somebody who could.
I think that's the issue. Well, I guess that's where it's interesting. Is this just part of the original court case? Are we saying, hey, Judge, they haven't complied with the order, or is this a completely separate action? And I think it might be both. Mr. Eubanks can weigh in on that. I think it's kind of muddied by the Seventh Circuit's failure to rule on the jurisdictional issue yet. So we really don't know where the case stands.
Yep, that's right. So it's best to think of the supplemental information report that has now been issued that is narrowly focused on Lake Monroe impacts as sort of its own separate decision, federal agency decision, because they will be, after this comment period, they will be putting it out a final SIR and presumably some sort of new decision. I don't think they're just going to stand pat on their old decision. I imagine they're going to put out a new decision. And if they do that, that would be a new final agency action as of that date, sometime probably in late 2022 or early 2023. And you would have to go to court separately to challenge that. That's not something that could be brought into the other lawsuit that is on appeal to the Seventh Circuit. That would have to start back fresh and go through a federal district court if someone wanted to challenge that.
I know Mr. Eubanks has to leave in about 4 or 5 minutes. Is there anything that, any other questions for him at this point?
Just to clarify, it sounds like Mr. Eubanks is willing to help with the final write-up if we get the expertise in a room or in a Zoom room together to provide the commentary. Is that understanding still accurate?
Yes, I mean, we certainly in other circumstances have taken more of the lead even on technical comments of this sort. But the fact is, we're starting to get down to a critical period here with not a lot of time left. And given that, I think that the county's resources would be better spent having us come in and serve in a reviewing and refining role and making sure it's consistent with the law, and let the people who have expertise in hydrology and related issues take the lead on drafting.
And another point might be the drafting of the request for an extension.
Can that be done with our current that?
Yeah, we would need to amend the retainer agreement, I believe. Yeah, you could do that Wednesday, I suppose, during your work session.
Because I didn't know if we could at least get the extension done with our current retainer and then get another retainer together for the actual writing process. I didn't know if that's what would be done with it.
Yeah, well, and Dave, I defer to Mr. Schilling. I defer to you on sort of the internal ethics at the county level. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the supplemental information report is the natural outgrowth of our litigation. It is what the Forest Service has done in response to our victory in the district court. And so if all you're asking us to do is to write a very short letter requesting an extension, a few hours of time. I mean, I think that could probably just be folded into our existing agreement. But if you all would feel more comfortable having a new one, we could certainly do that.
Yeah, I mean, if we're gonna have you do any analysis of the comments, that seems like it's a little bit more extensive. And I think we could take care of them all at the same time. In other words, later, we could approve the analysis and then ratify anything that we've done, just to be safe.
Sure.
Sir.
Yeah, I'm happy to follow your direction. It doesn't take long to pull together a new agreement.
But we do want Mr. Eubanks to file for the extension, right?
Yeah.
Costs and so forth of the review, Hoosier Environmental Council and the Indiana Forest Alliance said they would be interested in chipping in on that as well. Preferably taking the route of having Eubanks review rather than prepare, I think, just to save money for the inevitable future actions.
Yeah, well, and again, I think it's the right course of action here, just given the, often what a federal agency issues is pretty technical on the law. This SIR is not technical on the law. It's technical on the facts underlying the hydrology. And that's why I think having someone with that expertise will not only save money, but it'll make it a much better set of comments.
All right. Well, is there any suggestions on how to proceed with, we've talked about contacting Dave Simcox, anyone else? Okay. Is there?
What about Kelsey's predecessor, Terry Quillen? Would he have any expertise that might feed into this? Oh, I don't know.
The other day, there was a reception for the O'Neill School, who just turned 50. So congratulations, O'Neill School, on 50 years. And Lauren and I were actually there for one of the meetings, and we were in the room with a whole bunch of hydrologists. So we could reach out to those faculty members. We hang out with some pretty cool people. So we could reach out to those folks.
Anything about Yeah, I think we need to find it.
And then we don't need 30 experts, you know.
So.
I would love to work on this with you. Yes, I don't, I think if you put it all on my shoulders, we would not meet the deadline, but I'm more than happy to help.
Okay.
Yes,
All right.
very good. We'll do it.
And apologies if I'm interrupting anyone. I'm having trouble hearing who's not on the mic, but I actually have to leave here in a moment. But yes, once you all would like to, engage our firm on this, if it would make sense to have a new agreement, just let me know, Mr. Schilling, and we can take care of that quickly. I appreciate anyone who helps on this. And the other thing I would mention is, in addition to talking to me, feel free to call me, because I've been working on this issue now for several years. But the Friends of Lake Monroe, their reports and analyses are cited repeatedly in the Forest Service's SIR. And my understanding is that that organization does not view the citations to necessarily be correct. So it might be worth considering reaching out to them and comparing notes.
Yeah, I think we could add Maggie Sullivan and Iris and some other folks from that group. So is it possible that we could get something for our agenda Wednesday in terms of an agreement?
Sure, I'll send that over tomorrow morning, and it'll be waiting for you.
All right, is there anything else we need to do? So, Mr. Eubanks, you'll be writing the letter for us for the extension, and then you'll get us the agreement, the amended retainer agreement?
Yes, and do you want me to, I assume we're waiting until we have that agreement to submit the extension letter, or?
I think we're not worried about that, I don't think.
Okay,
ASAP, I guess.
got it. I've got the marching orders. Okay.
All right.
Great. Thank you both. Thank you all. I'm going to take off. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. All right. I don't believe so. I think that's it. All right, well, thanks.